Hey guys, welcome back to another Gaming Memories video. Here we are taking a look at Sno Cross Championship Racing for the PlayStation 1. This game was actually released towards the end of 2000, early 2001, and it was actually created by a team called Unique Development Studios. They had also been responsible for creating No Fear Downhill Mountain Biking that was released by Codemasters earlier in 1998-99. I actually have done a previous video on that game, even though it's a very different style of sports type of game and it is unique. I'll drop a link down in the description so you can go check it out. The thing that strikes me straight away is, from having played that game, even though it is a very different game, but you definitely know that there was some similarities, because I remember when I actually went to originally play this, I was like, this actually looks, and it has a very unique look to it that I've seen in another game. And it's only now when I actually went to do a bit of research on it and found it out that it was actually developed by the same studios that made that game. So it kind of, when you think of it then, it actually does make a lot of sense, because it does have a unique graphical style. Because I really love the visual aesthetic of the No Fear game, and this here is actually just the same. There's not too many like snow racing type games, or likes of snowmobile type racing games on the PlayStation. So this was definitely a unique concept. I played a few games on the likes of the PS2 and especially on the PS3 and even the PS4, and I actually thoroughly enjoyed them. I actually thought they were really good games. So it's interesting to actually go back and play one of these type of games on the PS1, and it doesn't actually disappoint. It's actually a really good game. Now I know it got mixed reviews in the magazines and that back in the day, but it isn't an easy game to pick up and play. I will say it takes a little bit of a while. I know I had to play it for a little bit to really get familiar with the controls, because it can be a little bit on the fiddly side to get familiar with the actual feel of the snowmobile. But when you actually get the hang of it, it's actually a really good game. It's actually a good fun game. The more I played it, the more I really started to get into it. You just have to learn the layout of the tracks and know where the jumps are. It can be a bit frustrating because the AI can be very dominant. It's very hard for you to catch up with them once they get a certain point ahead of you in the race. It can be very difficult for you to try and catch up with them, especially if you're in second place and trying to catch up with first place, because they're usually that far ahead in the race that it can be almost impossible to catch them at any point. The only way is if you can get any sort of a lead at the start of the race and manage to maintain it. You should be good to go, and you should be able to maintain it for the majority of the race. But if you do make mistakes, you're going to pay a hefty price, because it doesn't really kind of leave you for any type of mistakes. It crucifies you basically, so you just have to be something to be aware of. But aside from that, I actually enjoyed it. It was actually quite a decent game, and it's very different. There's not too many, for the amount of racing games that's on the PlayStation. There's very little in terms of these style of games. I don't remember too many of these type of games being on the console. So it is interesting to actually go back to actually see this. Again, the graphics are actually very good. I like the layout of the tracks. Even the graphics themselves on the actual snowmobiles are actually quite good. So that definitely adds to it. You have different types of tracks that you can race on. Again, with different environments, they have their own hazards and elements to kind of deal with as you're going through the courses. The one cool thing that the PlayStation version actually had as well is that it actually had its own track editor, so anybody like myself or anyone that was interested in level design could actually get involved and actually create your own tracks, which was quite fun. So you could add your own elements, you could add your own type of restrictions or your own obstacles, for the races. So it definitely was quite fun. The one thing I loved about those type of games with track editors, that if you say for a lot of people that wanted to get into game design like myself, they were a good entry point to figure out how a lot of these tools type worked. I know they may be older, the games are definitely a lot older, but it's still interesting to go back to actually see them in action and to just fiddle around with them, because again they kind of give you an idea of how some of these platforms actually work and still work even today. So it was definitely a way to get your feet wet basically in level design and so forth. So it is a cool feature to actually have in some of these games. I do remember a couple of other games I actually played on the PlayStation 1 that had their own track based editors as well. There was another like motocross game, International Moto X. Again, I've done a video on that, I'll leave it in the description. That also had its own track based editor as well. So I remember I used to play that. Now that also wasn't the best game in the world, but I loved using the track editor on it. That was quite fun. So even if you don't play the game as much outright, there was still quite a few other additional features in it that could definitely keep you interested for a while. So that's what definitely added to the unique concept of games I played on the PlayStation. Because the cool thing about a lot of this stuff as well with these type of games, not only were the games unique and quirky, but they added different elements to it that you wouldn't have really been aware of. And because of the fact that I was so big into my video games back then, I always wondered and would have been interested in know how do you develop these type of games and how do you develop the levels for them. So the fact is that a lot of developers actually put in level editors into the game so that you could have a bit of fun with it yourself was awesome. It was excellent actually, to give you kind of a teaser of what could be possible if you actually just use your imagination and put the pieces together. And that's what kind of led me, like, from years gone by messing around with games as well. I went to college a couple of years ago and I went and done a course in video game design. So for me it was pretty cool because I worked with likes of engines, with the likes of the Unreal Engine, Unity and a couple of other game engines as well. So it definitely is pretty cool, and it kind of, when you look back, all those evenings messing around playing with level editors on all these older type of games definitely gave you a feel for it. And it was cool because you were developing them in real time as well, and you're using 3D graphics, so it was definitely quite fun. And the game as a whole, I do like the concept of it. Again, graphically it does look very good. I know it didn't get good ratings, but it's one of those type of games you just have to stick with it. That's the thing, you know. If you allow yourself to actually stay with it, and if you can deal with the fiddly and twitchy controls at times, you will actually have a bit of fun with this game. It does present, I will admit, a really adequate challenge, but it's definitely fun. The environments definitely have a lot to do with how the physics of the snowmobiles actually handle. Whether you go over jumps, as you've seen previously, if you go over a certain jump too fast or too high, you will fall off the snowmobile. So you really have to time everything. You just have to be aware of your surroundings pretty much. But if you can master that, you can definitely master the game. So I actually found myself, as I was sitting down, even when I was recording this video, because it was actually the first time I'd ever actually played it. I'd never played this game previously. I remember actually hearing about it and seeing it like in game stores, but I never actually picked it up back in the day. Again, because around the time this came out, the PlayStation 2 was on its way out and it was about to be released, so more people were more hyped up towards that compared to even, the PlayStation 1 games. But it's still interesting because the PlayStation 1 was still developing a lot of really unique and quirky style of games at that point, and there was a lot of really, really cool type games still coming out for the platform that were trying something very, very different. And this year was part of that process pretty much. So it definitely is quite fun to play. And by sitting down and playing it when I was going to do this video, I actually realised how fun it actually is. Again, it took me a little bit of a while. I had to do a few races to really get a feel for the controls and get familiar with the levels and the layouts. But when I got the hang of it, I actually started to have a lot of fun, and I actually found myself playing it for way longer than I actually thought I would have done. But I do like these style of games because I have played them on some of the modern consoles like I mentioned, and I actually really enjoyed them. So yeah, and I just loved racing games in general, so to be able to give it a bit of a chance and to just see how you get on with it, it definitely is pretty good. Now, not the best racing game on the platform, I will admit, but that's not to say you can't have any fun with it nonetheless. Like I said, if you stick with it and just give yourself a bit of a chance, you will actually enjoy it, and it's definitely something very, very different. If you like off-road racing style games with a bit of a twist that has different type of concept to it, this may be a really good game for you to look at. So I do recommend, if you haven't tried out this game yet, I do recommend that you go and have a look at it, just to play something a little bit different, a little bit quirky, that has its own kind of unique vibe to it. So it's a good one definitely to check out. So I'd love to know your thoughts on this game, if you've played it back in the day, and if so, what are your thoughts on it? Did you like it? Did you enjoy it? Or did you not enjoy it? Share your thoughts then in the comments below. So if you have enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like. Also be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be updated whenever I release future content, and also feel free to share the video, as I will be exploring a lot of these old quirky and classic style of games on the PlayStation and share my thoughts and experiences with everyone. So as always, make sure to keep playing those classic games and enjoying them, and keep those gaming memories alive.